Good afternoon, everybody. It is America's Supermom with another episode of Keeping It Real. This is the show where we are talking about real life issues behind the highlight reel. So you have the people that are well known, they are successful in whatever industry, but here we're talking about the behind the scenes. What are the things that allow them to be the heroes that they appear to be on social media or just in real life? Okay, so a little bit about me. I will take this time to introduce myself since my guest has not arrived yet. I'm known as America's Supermom because my husband and I have 15 children. So, yes, we have 15. That's more than a dozen. We didn't stop there, we kept going. And we have 10 of them who still live at home, 8 of them who are currently doing e-learning. So it is always nonstop entertainment over here in my household. But how I got started doing what I'm doing right now as I'm speaking is my own struggle and battle with depression. I was dealing with depression for 13 years, and during that course of time, I was hospitalized 3 times. So I was ridden with people pleasing, trying to be all things to all people. Just the list goes on and on with trying to do everything perfect, which we know is just an illusion and not possible. So during that whole process was battling with being a victim, that mindset of woe is me, nothing goes right for me, why me, it goes on and on. And we still struggle with it, ups and downs, highs and lows, just with life in general. Why didn't this work? Why can't I always do it right? That word choice really puts us in a state of mind that is not positive at all. It doesn't serve us. And it allows us to stop doing things that we may be gifted in doing because we are telling ourselves negative things. So let's take, for example, that you are great at speaking. You do speaking events and everybody says, wow, I didn't think about that way that you preface that topic or whatever the case is. And then 2 weeks down the road, when you get offered an opportunity to speak on another stage, you're doubting if you have what it takes to show up and provide value to the audience, right? So we all deal with it. It's as the stage gets bigger, we get more intimidated about what it is that we actually already do. It's crazy like that. So this is really one of the things that really allowed me to come forward with this type of show because I think it's important for us to remind ourselves we all have highs and lows, ups and downs, right? But we have to be able to move past some of those roadblocks that we all are faced with, So you may be driving your car and you get a flat tire. Are you the only one in the whole world that gets a flat tire? No. Okay. So we have these things that come up. It's just the timing. We're not prepared for it, or, it's just something that we are not maybe gifted in dealing with sometimes as well, because we haven't had the experience of what it means to have a flat tire. Maybe it's a different car. You don't know where the spare is, all this kind of stuff. All right. So, needless to say, that's really the premise, is to not give us the illusion that life does not have downturns, right? But it is how we can overcome those downturns. And so this is really the premise of being able to have guests on, share their stories, some of the tips and strategies that they use in order to be the best version of themselves in spite of life's challenges. So my guest has arrived, and I will be bringing her on right now. Happy New Year. How are you?
Hi, Lachelle. Happy New Year.
So good to see you in person. We've talked before, but it's nothing like having that face-to-face interaction. So glad you could join me today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I like your attire, your shirt, and
Oh, thank you.
your
I appreciate that. When you have a brand, it makes it easy to have a wardrobe and know what you're gonna put on, right?
Definitely. You're always on
Mhm.
brand. I love that.
Yes, yes. So before we get started, let's tell everybody who you are, and we will just have an organic conversation. Don't know where that's going to lead us. We're both moms, both career oriented, dealing with virtual learning or whatever in some capacity. So, not sure where we're going to end up, but start with an introduction.
Yeah, I like that. I like not knowing where we're going to go. We'll go where we go, right?
Right.
Right. So my name is Jen Franks Ahagotu, and I am a course creator. I help mostly women entrepreneurs to package up their expertise, the things that they've studied, the things that they've experienced, and package that up as an online course that you can actually create a business out of, and take care of the people who you care about, and also take care of yourself.
I love that. And, I think that's really a good place to start because so many people with the new year, they're trying to reinvent themselves, do something new than what they did last year, working on pivoting. And, everybody talks about being virtual, but it may be an expense depending on the type of industry you have that you just can't switch over, for whatever reason with software and things of that nature. So,
Mhm.
talk to us about someone who has a catalog of information and how they can begin the process of creating a course and monetizing some of their catalog.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, ultimately, everybody has a course inside them, at least one course, at least one profitable course inside of them. And most people have like 10 or 20 different things that they could actually teach. So, one of the first things that I help people with, and usually people are coming to me because they're interested in creating a course. They maybe have some ideas or they have an idea, but they're not sure if it's going to be profitable. So they kind of have some sense of what they might possibly teach. But really the first step is to figure out, what is going to be that really good course topic for them. And there's a lot of ways to go about that. So we think about the things that you're passionate about, things that you have gotten results for, help people get results in the past. Maybe at your job, people tend to come to you for something that isn't even necessarily the job that you have, but it's just, maybe a lot of people sort of do coaching on the side for people, even if that's not a formal part of their job. So like, why not set it up so you can get paid to do that? And then some people, just have gone through different experiences and this is what they want to work on and it's just their passion. So it really all depends. And one of the great things about having this kind of an asset to your business, to your life, is that you can really base it off of whatever it is that you're passionate about. And then, we make that connection between your passions, your skills, and there's always somebody out there who wants what you have to offer.
I like that. And, because I think just the whole thing of looking at it a little different from another lens and realizing that the experience, expertise that you have, it is valuable to somebody else. If you see that people call you all the time for the same question, it's just like having frequently asked questions on your website or something, for example. If you know that you're getting these same questions over and over again, I mean, that's an indication that that may be something to begin with. So I like that concept. Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. And I have women who have created courses out of that and are making money out of that, off of that. So I have somebody who has gone through a divorce, and so her course is all about helping other women go through that divorce and come out, whole and sort of reconnect with the goals that they had for themselves before they got into their marriage. I have women who, I have a client who works at a university and then has tended to get tapped to talk about racial equity because she's a Black woman, and so we're like, let's package this and sell that to she, sold a package to a university who wanted help with that. So it's like, all right, don't just be that person on the side giving advice, or do if that's what you want to do, but there's also opportunity to package that up so that you can sell it, and then you can also make a greater impact.
I love that. And then, so it brings me to the next question of, we can kind of go on a rabbit hole, like I'm a lifestyle designer, which is in the coaching industry. So you've got a business coach, life designer coach, you've got health and wellness coach, performance coach. I mean, it's like coach, coach, coach. Same thing maybe with this era of courses. So, what
Mm,
are some things that we can do with our courses that allow us to stand out amongst the competition, so to speak, doing
mm.
things that's a little different?
Yeah, I love that question. And I get that question all the time. And I think about that question all the time because, like, I'm not the only course creator out there. There's plenty of people who can help you create courses. And when you're thinking about what makes you stand out, I always like to direct people to think about two different things. One is your story. So your unique story for, how you came to be an expert in this area, what your experience has been, the challenges that you've gone through, how you overcame those challenges. Everybody has their own unique story, and nobody can be a copy of you and your unique story. And as you know, when you're marketing yourself and you're putting yourself out there, a big piece of that is storytelling and helping people understand how not just I can give you strategy, which of course that's a part of it, but a larger part of it and why people connect to you is based on the story that you tell and who you are and what you represent. I've had people who said, you know what, I signed up with you because you said this one quote and that really spoke to me. I signed up with you because your last name's Ahagotu and I know you're Nigerian and I relate to that. So, people link up for all kinds of different reasons. So who you are and your story is very, very important. So share it as much as you can, and that's going to resonate with the right person. And then the second thing is your unique framework for how you do what you do. So, let's say that you are somebody who helps women who are coming out of divorce. There is a certain experience that you've had, and there's a certain process that you take people through. Like, what's the first thing you would have people do? The second thing, the third, and it's like your intellectual property. That's your unique process. And so, kind of the mixture of those two things, who you are and that unique process that you bring people to get the transformation that you're helping them with, are the most important things that make you stand out in the marketplace.
I love that. And I think a lot of people kind of miss that point about the process. They get caught up and, they may not know that process because when the next best thing comes out, they're following that or following this person or that person. And so there isn't that consistency or cohesion to even understand what it is they're doing. But I guess taking that journey of thinking of how am I going to be able to train somebody, so to speak, to follow in my footsteps of what I did really allows you to think a little differently in terms of creating a course and making it more duplicatable.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And then I always say, once you have that framework and once you have that, the story and the stories that you tell about who you are and who you're here to help, then you can share that with anybody in any way. Right. So I package it or I talk about it as a course, but honestly, you can sell your course to you can work with one person one-on-one and really guide them through. You can work with a small group of people. You can work with you can, once you have videos created, you can send it out to thousands of people. You can take a little piece of that for a training. You can do a workshop on parts of it. Like, once you have it figured out, then you're just empowered to be able to use it in whatever way that you want to, and it becomes a major asset for your business.
I love that. And so, what are some of the apps or platforms, so to speak, that we have our courses on?
Yes, yes. So there's a couple of, well, first of all, there are lots of apps out there. And that's always one of the big questions, like what online course platform do you use and where do you host your stuff? And so there's definitely tech pieces there. I use Thinkific for my online course platform. I like that for beginners because it's very simple. You can put your courses on there for free, up to 3 courses to start. So you don't have to be, putting in a bunch of money or getting, like a monthly subscription to start, which I think is great for beginners. They've got great customer service and it's very clear. So I really like Thinkific. But especially for people who are just starting out, you can hold your class live on Zoom. So when I first did my first course, I needed to know what I was going to teach, and I needed again to have a message and know what my process was going to be. But then we just got on Zoom, and and I taught straight from there. It was almost like our little classroom, and I taught what I needed to teach, and we just met weekly on Zoom. So it doesn't actually have to be that complicated. People, I think, get intimidated by the tech and intimidated by the platforms and videos and edit. Like it does not, it can be very, very simple.
I love that, and many times we call it putting the cart before the horse because, you say, oh, I want to do a course. And then you get into all these different subscriptions and you don't even have the infrastructure to support it. So then you're creating bills and then you don't know your way that you're going to do the format, what works. You want to make changes, but then you got to add more cost to it. So I love the way that, we start off kind of fine tuning, mastering, so to speak, what that course looks like, how long it takes for people to get results, what's the best way of doing it. And if you don't have a lot of cash outlay, you can modify those things quickly rather than you have to wait till your subscription runs out from another program or something.
Exactly. Like we all have enough subscriptions, many of us, so we don't need any more of that for sure. And in addition to that, I teach this method called a pre-sale method. So what that means is that you create your outline, like you get super, super clear on exactly who your course is for, what the result is you want to get that person, the steps that it's going to take them to get that result, your coaching model, if you're going to be doing some coaching, pricing, name, all of that. We get very, very clear on that first and have that outlined. And then we go and we sell it. Because just like you were saying, you don't want to be spending all this time creating videos and platforms and all this stuff, and you don't even have anybody who's actually bought it yet. So to take what you're saying even a step further, what we do is we, create this outline and make sure you're very, very clear on what your course is about. Then you go and sell it. You get somebody to pull out their credit card, pay you for it. That really validates it. And then over time, you create the pieces of the course. You kind of drip it out piece by piece as people are going through it. So it's a pre-sale method, and I highly recommend that when you're thinking about creating really any program, a course or anything. Like make sure you test it out in the market before you spend a whole bunch of your time creating it.
I love that. And then, so for people who are at that point where they feel like, okay, I'm ready to make an offer, so to speak, or put it out there, what is the best way for them to get out of their own way with the benefit that they want to express the course will do for them? Because I think for some people, this is a hang up. It's like, well, I don't want to say that I can produce this because, I can't be responsible for that. So how do you get someone who's watching to the point where they can be concrete about the benefits that their course is going to provide? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that, I talk to people about that a lot as well. So when you're thinking about a result, it is important for it to be concrete, right? So for example, I've had a result like I help you create and launch your online course in 90 days, for example, right? And so people do want to make sure that it's really clear what that outcome is, not sort of what's along the way. And it's like, okay, what at the end of this, either you're going to say, check, that happened, or it didn't happen, right? It has to be that clear. So that's a really good point, and that's something that people need some time sometimes to really figure out what that result's going to be with all of this knowledge that they have. And if they're having some challenges with that and they're not quite sure, that, one of the things I do is I really ask a lot of questions about, what have you been able to achieve for yourself? What is something that you've helped other people to achieve up to this point? So it doesn't come out of nowhere like, oh, it would be really great to do this thing in this certain amount of time. It really has to be based on something that you've done in the past. And for a lot of people, who they're really marketing to is an earlier version of themselves, right? So they went through this process. This is what worked for them. Perhaps they've helped some other people with it as well. And then we're really taking from, okay, well, what were you able to do? Or what were you able to help other people to do, so that we can really create something that that really serves people and that's really clear. So you know what where you're headed, and that way you can guide other people to that.
I love that. I love that. So, switching gears a little bit with us being moms and, the whole thing of the dynamics of school changing, what tips would you give, as we start off this new year fresh for moms who are kind of dealing with this struggle of career and kids at home? How are they navigating through that? So, ways that they can kind of approach this from a more empowered mindset.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's so much. There's so much of everything involved with being a mom, and so much emotion involved. It's like these visceral things. Like I feel like in many ways I approach things from a very strategic way. And then as I've gotten older, I have started just tapping into my emotions about things. And motherhood's a very emotional thing, as we know, all the highs and lows and everything in between. So I think one of the things that I try to do, I'm not always, amazing at this, but one of the things I try to do is to just to, I don't know, forgive myself for not always, like, not feeling like I always have to be perfect with it, or that I have to be like, this perfect model. Like, really, like, I feel like for our children, we should model being the human beings that we are, and that that you don't have to be perfect. And I have two girls, and I think particularly for women, there's this idea of, being perfect and getting everything right and sugar and spice and everything nice and all of that stuff. And we're human beings, like sometimes I'm going to be sad, and it's okay for my kids to see that I'm sad. Sometimes I'm going to be frustrated, and it's okay for them to see that. And so I don't know. I think that we should give ourselves permission to be human, and that actually doing that is a great gift for our children. But that
Yeah.
said, sometimes it's hard,
So true. I mean, I'm really going through this now because I have a senior, and she's doing virtual learning. And it's just that whole concept to where I don't know what it's like to experience what she's experiencing. And one, it's like, this is her first time being a senior, even though I've had like 8 of them already. I mean, you see what I'm saying? So it's like, but this is her first experience, and kind of being mindful of that is, being relevant to the times and seeing life through their eyes and responding to that rather than saying, hey, you're a senior, it's not that big of a deal. People do it every day, but really being intentional with going through the experience through their eyes at the time that it's happening, To me,
Yeah.
I found that's been a little bit more beneficial too.
Yeah, I agree. Because I have my 11-year-old is, she's a preteen. And so now it's like, Mom, you don't understand. And you don't. And then, but when she's talking about like virtual learning experience, like I don't understand that, And so Yeah, I totally agree with you that we're really in unprecedented times, and that it's okay to say, look, I don't, I understand, like, I don't know what it's like, tell me more about what this is, how you're feeling about this, and we can talk about that and work through it. But yeah, I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes right now. And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that element of honesty is good because it really shatters that perfection illusion. And you're able to create things as necessity appears. I've talked to several of my kids teachers about ways to relieve stress, and they've incorporated breathing exercises in the virtual learning because it's one of those things that we're going through this, but we have to have a way to manage some of
Mm,
the issues that we can control on a regular basis to prevent things from getting out of hand.
yeah, I agree. I agree. And I know for my kids as well, one thing, I don't know, we're doing a lot of really talking about just what it is, like, in terms of the academic environment, we're just trying to also just have conversations about what they're learning, right? So let's talk about, because I feel like, so I was a teacher and administrator for 15 years. So I am just very familiar with, the school experience and in different perspectives. And so I feel like, the one thing that is actually nice that we have more opportunity to do because we're together is just talk about, like, what's going on in school and what are you learning about and what's interesting about that, and what do you know about it, what do I know about it, having my daughter just read the newspaper and, like, talk about what's going on. And so I feel like it's also this nice time where there aren't as many distractions and aren't as many other things happening, where we've really been able to just have more conversations, which is also a part of education.
Mhm. So true. So true. So talk to us about, what do you have going on for 2021? Most times people say they don't have a New Year's resolution, and I get that because, it's a pattern that many of us fall short with. But I don't know. There's just, to me, I think this year is different based on what we've experienced last year. That, there's some real value with being intentional and kind of directing and ordering your steps to what you want an outcome to be. So,
Yeah.
what do you have in mind for 2021? Just something that, you want to do differently or have learned, that can really um, be a great sounding board for the audience.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, it's interesting. Approach the new year in a similar way, that it's this opportunity to reflect on the last year and then also just get yourself energized for the year to come, especially in this past year.
Mhm.
And but then I also try not to plan out something so big that I'm intimidated by the end of January and I'm just kind of demoralized because it was just too much.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think this year, well, every year I think about a word that's just going to be kind of a North Star um, guiding word for me. Last year it was unapologetic, and this year it's joy. And honestly, like, one of the things I'm really thinking about in my business is how to create things that and do them in a way that I really want to do them, right? Because there's a lot of things in our businesses where we're sort of, oh, I dread doing this, or I don't want to do that. Like, if you look at your checklist on a daily basis and you're just like, I don't want to do this, this will be terrible, this is, and you're just kind of feeling like, I don't really want to do a lot of this stuff. I'm trying to look at everything through the lens of, like, what could I do to make this a more, not that I don't need to do those things, but what could I do to make a more joyful experience? What could I do to make it more fun, to make it something that I really want to be doing? So yeah, I think some of it is really thinking about the lens that you use to think about what you're doing and how you approach it. And so, I'll give you an example. One thing that I'm really trying to do this year is to just connect with people more and have more conversations, have more coffee chats, and just get to know people a little bit better and then
Mhm.
see where that leads, right? So as opposed to like, I need to get this many, people into sales calls, sales calls, sales calls. Like, yes, that's important, but also, just setting it up where you're having conversations, you're interacting with people, that often leads to sales and it often leads to partnerships and things that you might not have even imagined. So yeah, I'm really trying to think about how to bring in more joy and how to find the joy in the things that are part of the business already.
I love that because, really when you have that intention, things begin to grow without you personally taking part in it, if that makes sense. So, you make these connections and then they say, oh, I have a women's group and we've been talking about courses. So instead of you trying to talk to 7 people a day, somebody might say, can you come and do a presentation? And it's 10 people, on a Zoom call, and you didn't have to set anything up to show up,
Right.
so I really get that. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's such a connected place, because I think
Hmm.
ultimately we we are often by ourselves, right? Like, I mean, we have our many of us have our families with us now, so we're not as like alone as we used to be. But you're sort of on your own as a solopreneur or an online business owner, and so even just having those connections, like I found, it's sparking new ideas. It's building partnerships. It's making connections. There's so many benefits to kind of the greater landscape of your business when you take time for those things.
I love that. That's great. And so, what do you think is really the biggest challenge that a lot of people have, um, just in general, when they're starting something new or, having this opportunity to, reinvent themselves or whatever the case is? What do you think is, our biggest hang up that we really need to kind of put behind us so that we can be more successful?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think for me, one of the things that I love is, honestly, I love having a coach. I love having a coach. And I used to feel sort of silly. I used to feel like it was kind of silly because coaches would say, oh, the most important thing you need a coach. And I'm a coach. And I was like, are they just trying to get me to, trying to get me to get into coaching with them? And I feel it
Exactly.
kind of silly. But then I started working with more coaches and I always have somebody who I work with. And I think that it makes a huge difference. And so I've worked with a number of people over time. I just signed on with a coach that I'm just like in love with. And just because I think a lot of times what happens is that we don't even necessarily know exactly what we need. It's almost like we need that outside perspective and somebody else to help us see our blind spots or see the things that we couldn't see for ourselves. And I think that that could be in one-on-one coaching. It could be in a group coaching. I just joined this fantastic membership where there are, coaching calls weekly, and I'm just sitting there, just like riveted by even watching them coach other people. So especially if you're a coach or a service provider, I think that having somebody who you can really have a sounding board, even if it's just a kind of a peer coaching relationship, I think that that's really, really helpful and provides a lot of insight and a lot of growth.
It's so true. I mean, I definitely agree. And, they get you out of your comfort zone. It's so funny that you brought that up because I had a business coach who was challenging us to reach out to people on LinkedIn. And so, how LinkedIn has suggested connections. And I thought, I just don't want to do that. I want to do something different. So I grabbed a Michael Gerber book. And the people who write the forward or, whatever comments. So I was going through and whoever wrote something, I looked it up on LinkedIn to see if they were on LinkedIn and asked for a connection. Well, out of that, experience, one of the people was Ivan Meisner, who's the founder of BNI, which I didn't know. I didn't read anything. I just looked for the name, and he accepted my connection request. So then I was like, anybody who connects with me, my next thing is, hey, I want you to be a guest on my podcast. So I didn't really have the podcast at the time. I was doing Facebook Live interviews. So I asked him if he'd be willing to do it. He was like, sure. So he got me connected with his assistant and everything. We picked a day, and I didn't even know who he was still. So then I was like, well, I better check this out. This is somebody that knows Michael Gerber. So then I looked and I was like, oh my goodness, this is the founder of BNI. So went through that whole little thing. But, it was from that experience that I was able to make that connection. Why? Because I was being prompted by my coach to get out of my comfort zone. And as a result, these are some great things that can happen when someone sees the potential and kind of knows what's down the road. We don't get caught up in, if you have a trip or a fall, they see the whole perspective and they're like, okay, you're just right here at the beginning, or whatever. You can get over this. You got this, so I think that's really important to bring that up. Mhm.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I feel like I always get a lot of energy in my business and momentum in my business, and then see that for other people when they're willing to step out of their comfort zone and connect to people. To me, like that is the best indicator of you being successful, is
Yeah.
being willing to do that. And it's hard, it's not always easy. And so sometimes we need like a little a little push from somebody
So
who knows
true.
that we're hiding a little bit, and that we could put ourselves out there, and that great things will happen.
Yeah, so true. I totally agree. Well, this has just been a very great, informative segment. I appreciate all your insight and things that, you've given us to really approach this year in a different mindset. And, that really is the key to providing change, is just changing your mind. When you're thinking differently, you're acting differently, talking differently. And so, I think this is really some great conversations that many people can begin to explore to be better versions of themselves. So, what is the best way for the audience to get a hold of you?
Hmm. Yeah, so the best way is to go to my website. It's my name, jenfranksahagotu.com. That's the best way to do it. And you'll find out a little bit more information there. And then there's a link if you want to schedule a call. I would love, like I said, I'm looking to chat with people and have conversations, learn more about you and what you're up to and what you're looking to do this year. So it's the best way.
Awesome. And so, then what final words would you share with everybody as we come to a close in our time together?
Sure, sure. I would say follow your joy in 2021, and you can't go wrong if you do that.
I love that. So that is great words of wisdom from Jen. And I encourage you guys to reach out. We all have this catalog of information, and I encourage you to find a way that you can package this in a way that this information doesn't just sit on the shelf, but it provides an impact to the right people who need that information. And I love the fact that she brought up, we are just talking to the person that we used to be. So we just may be 2 or 3 steps in front of them, but this still is some valuable, life changing information that could have a tremendous impact on how they are able to look through the lens differently and be a better version of themselves as they take that journey to self development and improvement. So I encourage you to reach out to Jen. And we want to thank you guys for watching with us today. And we want you to be successful and prosperous in 2021. So thanks again for tuning in on this episode, and we will see you later on. Bye for now.